Hello everyone, welcome. So on the agenda for today, we're going to do something a little bit different. I would like to have a chat. Yeah. So I've got my computer here, I've got a few notes off to the side that I may check in with every once in a while to try and keep this as focused as possible and to really make sure I can deliver to you some practical, actionable tips for you to improve and really elevate your home yoga practice. Okay, so where I want to start with this conversation is first just this idea of feeling stuck, right? I think it's a pretty universal experience as a yoga student that at some point you feel a little stuck in your yoga practice. You know, maybe you're not progressing at the rate that you'd like to. Maybe you're feeling a little bored in your yoga practice, uninspired. Okay, there's normal ebb and flow when it comes to, daily routines, habits, practices that we have, and that's totally normal. Okay, when you first start your yoga practice, maybe you got really into it right at the beginning, go, but that's not sustainable, indefinitely. It will change. Your relationship to your yoga practice will change. So that's normal. I just want to say that, have that be on the table. But there is that other sort of aspect to this where we start to feel stuck, we get a little bored, and then we get discouraged. And sometimes people will actually, kind of give up on their yoga practice or move on, feel like they need to find kind of like the next thing, so they'll try something else. They're not getting from their yoga practice what I know the yoga practice can deliver, which is a completely personal and whole, oh gosh, I don't even have great words for it. It's just that my yoga practice, it fills me up and it serves me, right, in so many ways. And so what I wanted to do today is discuss this a little bit, and I get inquiries from folks who feel like this and who are looking for ways to improve, right? To improve their home yoga practice. Oh, and I just sort of spilled the beans. The crux of all of this is to have a home yoga practice. Okay, what is a home yoga practice? Today, now, you may be at home watching YouTube, you say, I'm practicing yoga at home. Or you're at home joining a Zoom class, I'm doing yoga at home. That is not what I mean, okay? A home yoga practice is different than following a class, attending a class. Totally different. Now, in the Iyengar Yoga community, we will often talk about the distinction between a class goer and a yoga practitioner. Okay, and I say these two words, these two types, with no judgment. It's just different people with different relationships with their yoga practice. A class goer will be exactly what it sounds like. Somebody who attends yoga classes, right? They want to go to yoga, so they pick a class, whether it's online or in person, whether it's recorded or live stream, and they show up, they do the class, they go home, and then the next time they do yoga is the next time they attend a class. Okay, in contrast, a yoga practitioner will practice between classes. Okay? And why is this important? Okay, this is important because, listen, the truth is you show up to yoga class and you're at the whim of the teacher. Now, in Iyengar Yoga, I think our teachers are quite skilled, and we may be able to adapt the class and modify things to respond to the needs of the students who show up. And that's good. But it's all within a framework, right? Like if you're needing to downregulate your nervous system, you're feeling, overwhelmed, and you need to really slow down. You show up to class and it's a class of strong back bending and maybe arm balancings. You know what? Like that's not what you need today, but you're at the whim of the teacher. Okay? So when you practice at home, it's this opportunity to really tap into this idea of personalizing your yoga practice. Hey there. If you have a cranky back, stiff neck, if you're overweight, anxious, or if you simply don't look, feel, or resonate with the images of yoga on social media, you will definitely want to check out my online course, Iyengar Yoga Fundamentals. Personalizing your yoga practice. Yeah. How do you do it? Well, just like everything else in yoga, this idea of personalizing your yoga practice is a skill. And it's a skill that needs to be cultivated. It's not, anything you can just learn the formula and do. But again, like most everything in yoga, it needs to be cultured. It needs to be cultivated, nurtured. And so what I want to outline for you at this point in this video are 3 stages, kind of distinct stages of a home yoga practice that will help you develop the skill of personalizing a yoga practice. Okay, now the first stage is sort of, you may be a class goer, but you're intrigued at this idea of becoming a practitioner, right? So you want to head in that direction. But you go to your mat, you're like, okay, I'm going to practice at home today in between classes, and you go to your mat and you have no idea. You don't know what to do. Okay, how do I make the practice respond to my needs? I mean, that's so kind of random. It's so elusive. All right, I hear you. I get that, and I know that this is very true for a lot of people when they first make this decision. Yes, I'd like to practice at home. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is to continue to go to your yoga classes, but I want you to observe 3 things, okay? Before your yoga class, I always encourage students to show up maybe a couple minutes early, just take a little bit of time for themselves to compose themselves, to prepare for practice. So in that time, I want you to observe what is the state of your body right now before practice, okay? And this is not an essay question. You may have 1 word, 2 words that come to mind. Just make a mental note. How does your body feel right now? Okay, then I also want you to observe what is the state of your breath right now at the beginning of this practice or before practice. Okay, similarly note that. And then finally, observe your state of mind. Okay, without judgment, without explanation, what is your state of mind today as you're approaching your yoga practice? Your yoga class in this case. Okay, then you do your class. You attend the class. Then, at the end of your yoga practice, I want you to observe those same 3 things. Okay, the state of your body, the state of your breath, and your state of mind. Okay, now the side project to this exercise is that I would encourage you to have some kind of journal, a yoga journal. Okay, it can be paper and pen, it can be a digital notebook, whatever works for you. And I would record these notes. And like I said, if you enjoy journaling and you want to make it into a bigger project, by all means, go ahead. But it can literally be 3 words, right? 1 word answer for each of the 3 questions. Before class, after class. All right, then next stage, make a note of what you practice that day. Okay, so was it back bending week? Was it forward bend week? Standing poses, right? In the Iyengar community, we often work on a cycle, right? Standing poses, forward extensions, back extensions, and then maybe restorative. So that might be handy if your teacher follows that. But if not, maybe just write down a couple of poses that you did, something that left an impression, and just leave it at that. Okay, and if you don't know the names of the poses and you happen to be good at drawing, little stick figures can go a long way in helping to jog your memory down the road. All right, that's the exercise, and do this for at least a month. Okay, record your classes, record how you feel before the classes and after the classes. And what I think you'll find is that certain patterns emerge, and you start to become sensitive to these patterns, right? You may start to notice that whenever you do forward bending, you feel really quiet and introspective afterwards, okay? Or you may find that certain practices agitate you in some way. Listen, I mean, there's a million different ways it can go. You can get different kinds of insights. But it's a very interesting exercise, and it is quite literally a way to flex that muscle, to train that muscle of being more sensitive to what the practice has to offer you. Okay, now the second stage in this journey of personalizing your yoga practice is to make that leap and to start practicing between classes. Okay, so yeah, start practicing between the classes. And there are a few different ways to get started with this. Okay, one way is to simply practice a couple of poses that you did in the class. Right? So if you go to class on Monday and then you want to do a home practice on Tuesday, what do you remember? You know, don't worry too much about the order and this and that. Just what do you remember, and do those poses. Get yourself onto the mat and practice, right? Do a couple of them. Okay, now another approach that I really enjoy, and this assumes that you do have in your mind sort of a repertoire of poses, right? You've been taking classes, you've been practicing yoga for some time, and you know what you like, right? You know what you like, you know what's hard for you, and you kind of have opinions about that. So in that case, there's a technique which I like to call love, loathe, invert. Okay, now this technique is really handy for two reasons. One, if you don't know what to practice, okay, you can use this technique. You know you want to do a practice, you don't know what you should do this. Okay, the second reason why it's a handy technique is because it's short. Okay, so maybe you don't have a lot of time, but you still want to do a little yoga practice. Well, this will get you there. Okay, so what is it? Love, loathe, invert. Pick a pose you love. Pick a pose you don't love, that you loathe, and get yourself upside down. Okay? Any order, do it in whichever order you want, but pick a pose you love, pick a pose you hate, and then get yourself upside down. And there you go, a short yoga practice, done. Okay, now after you do those three poses, if you feel like, I'm just getting started, I want to practice a little more, go for it, roll with it. Okay, but love, loathe, invert has got me through many of times. Stage 3, let me just see here. Now you just got to do it, right? So you're already at the place where you're putting in some time on the mat between going to classes. You're either repeating stuff that was done in the class, you're working with love, loathe, invert. Next stage is to just alter that journal practice, that exercise with the journal, just slightly. So what I would want you to do now is ask yourself, okay, how do I feel right now? And again, quick, short, doesn't need to be a whole story. How do you feel right now? Record it. Then ask yourself, how do I want to feel at the end of this yoga practice? And then, how much time have you got? Be realistic, okay? So for example, I'm feeling a bit sluggish. I would like to feel energized and also focused. And I have 20 minutes, okay? Something like that, okay? Then come up with a practice that will help serve you in that way, okay? And put together your practice, and then at the end of the practice, you can make a note, again, how do you feel? And was it effective? I mean, did you make the right call? Did it work? Did it do what you hoped it would do? Maybe this sequence of poses actually made you more focused, helped you energize and focus yourself when you practiced it last week, but for some reason today it wasn't so effective. This happens, right? This is the thing with yoga. Everything is related and connected to everything else. How you show up on the mat is going to affect how you imbibe the practice, how it lands on you. All right? And again, I just want to reiterate that this is a skill that needs to be cultivated. Okay, knowing which poses and how to kind of structure these practices. Do you need a dynamic, fast-paced practice? Do you need something more quiet? Is it a particular category, family of asanas that are going to serve you best right now, right? Or maybe it's like approach from a completely different angle, right? So maybe you have back pain, right? I know I found myself in this situation often, and I designed a practice to target my back pain. I mean, that's also a way to structure your practice. It can be both trying to respond to your nervous system, your emotional state, and of course also to your physical state. There's kind of endless endless opportunities to be creative with your yoga practice. Okay, so we've gone over sort of the 3 stages that it would be natural to go through these 3 stages as you develop a really meaningful and personal home yoga practice. Okay, now aside from these 3 stages, which I will reiterate, why don't I reiterate them? Okay, stage 1, you go to classes, but you start to journal a little bit. Right? How do the classes make you feel? You observe the body, the breath, your state of mind, before and after class. Stage 2, you start practicing between classes. Okay, maybe you repeat a couple of the poses that you did in your classes. And then you can also start playing around with love, loathe, invert. Okay, it starts to get the juices flowing. It starts to make you start thinking about stuff. I think it's really fun. Okay, and then the 3rd stage, and this is where I live, right? This is ongoing. You personalize your yoga practice. You start thinking about how the practice make you feel, and then design your home practice accordingly. How do I feel right now? How do I want to feel at the end? And keep in mind how much time you truly have for practice, okay? So aside from these 3 stages, okay, there are also a few almost like peripheral things that you can do to just support you with your commitment, your dedication and inspiration to your home yoga practice, okay? So I thought I'll go over them. I've got 6 tips for you. 6 tips to help you out. Tip number 1, prioritize your yoga practice by scheduling it. Yeah, pick a time. You know, do you have 20 minutes in the morning for yoga? Do you have an hour in the afternoon? Figure it out and put it in your calendar and schedule it. Just like you would go to a doctor's appointment, or just like you would do anything else, just schedule the time. That's it. Okay? And give it, if you haven't tried this, give this a try, right? It's about prioritizing. I'll leave that. Okay, second tip is to embrace the short practice. Okay, especially when you're working to develop the habit of home yoga practice. It's very easy, you know, if your classes tend to be 90 minutes or even 2 hours, you know, it's like, what's a 20-minute home yoga practice going to do? But really, it's worth it. It's worthwhile. Do a couple inversions, do a couple poses, just see what happens, and start to chip away like water on a stone sort of thing. Like, make that habit of getting to your mat on your own truly ingrained. Let it become part of you. So tip number 2 is embrace the 20-minute practice. Embrace short and sweet. Okay? Okay, tip number 3. Okay, sometimes it can be really nice to have a yoga buddy, and then you can motivate each other. Okay, so having a yoga buddy is not the same as going to class with somebody else. You can still practice independently. You can each have your own love, loathe, and vert, or however you want to do it. But there's definitely a certain energy that is special when you practice collectively but separately. So if there's anybody that you connect with from your yoga classes, or somebody else who's just really, really keen on it these days, I encourage you to try and develop that relationship. My yoga friends are some of my most special friends. Okay, tip number 3. Tip number 4. Okay, this one is, it's like a little superficial. Okay, tip number 4, what I was gonna say is curate a yoga space. Now, this is not essential. Like, as long as you have space to maybe lay out a mat and extend your arms, reach, you know, space to move around, you're good to go. It's not essential. However, our environments do affect us, right? And you know, if you have a clear space, it may help to have a clear mind. So if you can manage to dedicate a space in your home for yoga that you feel is special, you know, maybe you have a couple yoga books there, or some special photos, or just curate the space to nourish you, to feed you. Okay, that's tip number 4. And sort of along with that, tip number 5, also, like, this is why I'm saying these tips are kind of peripheral. It's not essential, but in my own experience, it does help to elevate the experience of practice and ultimately encourages me to get to the mat. So tip number 5 is invest in some equipment. Invest in good yoga props. Okay, we can always improvise, use what you have. That's kind of like baseline. But having good tools, just like a carpenter with a level or an artist with a paintbrush, when you have good tools, it makes your experience better. Okay, so that would be tip number 5. And tip number 6 is find some external inspiration. Yeah, so sometimes starting off your yoga practice by opening up maybe one of BKS Iyengar's book. I love Light on Life, and I know I can open it up anywhere and just read a passage, and it will just fill me up. It will give me a little bit of something. It's kind of one of those books. It's funny, no matter when I open it up and no matter where I open it up to, it feels right. It feels like that passage was meant for me for that day. So that can be inspiring. You can read through the Yoga Sutras, pick one sutra before each practice. And, you know, not only does this give you something to reflect on, but it sort of sets a mood, a mode for your yoga practice. And while it's very easy to feel like yoga asana is the entirety of yoga, it's really not. And so it's a nice reminder of that. Okay? Another way to find inspiration, and I say this just with a little bit of caution, but again, I'm trying to be as honest as possible. Oh, excuse me, I'm spitting. As honest as possible here. Is you can look at social media, you can look on YouTube, you can look on Instagram, and maybe there's a yoga practitioner or a yoga teacher who's doing something that looks interesting, and maybe you want to try it, right? And so what I would encourage you to do is try it, but then make it your own. So again, don't let that be I'm just going to copy and just copy it, but rather let it be a starting off place for your own exploration. Okay, that's what will keep it true home practice. Okay, and the reason why I say to be cautious with the social media and finding inspiration that way is because it's easy to get into that comparison mode, right? And typically what gets posted on social media will be very advanced, and it's not realistic for a lot of people to be able to do some of those fancy poses. So please keep that in mind, and try not to kind of go down that rabbit hole. Okay, all that said, I do look once in a while and I see stuff, and it will trigger, it will give me inspiration. It will trigger different kind of avenues for exploration. All right, there you have it. Those are my 6 tips, a little bit on the peripheral side, but what I really hope you take away from this video and this chat are those 3 stages, because I feel like those 3 stages of cultivating the skill of personalizing your yoga practice is like the crux. It's what's going to take you to the next level. It's what's going to make your home yoga practice meaningful and be with you forever, right? It's like your personal toolbox. All right, that's that. Hey, let me know in the comments if you like this video, if you're keen on a few more talking videos every so often. Have a bunch of stuff to say, so they may come out one way or another, but I would love to hear from you. All right, take care.